If there is light at the end of the tunnel this week, it is very faint and very far away. General David Petraeus and Ambassador Ryan Crocker were cautious and low-key in their long-awaited testimony, but in the end, they recommended the U.S. stay in the fight in Iraq. We'll talk about political realities later on, but first, let's look at what they said was the reality on the ground. And to help us in Chicago, retired Brigadier General David Grange joins us, a CNN military analyst, and with me in Washington, Lawrence Korb, a former Assistant Secretary of Defense, now with the Center for American Progress. And let's kick off by listening to what the President said in his address late this week.
Our military commanders believe we can succeed. Our diplomats believe we can succeed. And for the safety of future generations of Americans, we must succeed.
So, General Grange, it seems to be off the table now, this notion of a precipitous or sudden pullout anytime soon. What does that do to the military strategy?
Well, I think the strategy all along was actually to redeploy some of these military units on a timeline even before this testimony, or even before it was analyzed. When they just released the number of troops coming back. But it's almost out of necessity. By spring, summer of next year, you don't have forces that can rotate on a 12 to 12-month type rotation. You either have to keep the 15 months deployments up with only 12 months to rest if you want to continue it the way it is, and the military, frankly, does not want to do that.
Well, Lawrence, let me ask you about that then. Was anybody listening to this testimony here? The Democrats didn't seem to want to hear it. If the White House is pursuing a course it was going to pursue anyway, what difference does all this make?
Well, I think the big difference was that the President came forward with the surge, says, give us 6 months, and then we'll be able to make a decision. What has happened is after 8 months, he's bought almost another 10 months to make a decision. So General Grange is right. You're going to have to take the troops out come next spring, whether you want to or not. But what he has done is, rather than being forced to take a lot of them out now, which a lot of people had hoped, he's able to stretch this out till next spring or summer, because General Petraeus and Ambassador Crocker now are going to come back in March to give us an update.
A lot of people, Lawrence, have wanted a withdrawal to start now. Some of the candidates are still talking about it right now. But that does seem politically to be just off the table. So putting that aside, what would you like to see as this goes forward?
Well, I think until you set a specific date to get out, you are not going to be able to get the countries in the region to work with it.
But that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So absent that, what do you do?
Well, I think absent from that, you just make sure. I would pass the Senator Webb, Senator Hagel bill, which guarantees that you can't send the troops back until they've had an equal time at home, which will guarantee they will not extend troops from 15 to 18 months or not give them at least a year home in between deployments.
Shorter rotations all the way around. Let's look at what General Petraeus' main points were here. He said basically that the security situation is improving. Sunni and Shia extremists have been weakened. Counterinsurgency tactics are working. Agreements with local tribes are reducing the insurgency, and Iran is a major military problem. General, do you generally agree with that?
I do, and I think that there's a couple issues here that we have to make sure we're accurate on, and that is how long, the reports, how long have we tried to surge? It depends how you count that, and there's some inaccuracies, like I said, that's floating around in comments. One is, I believe, you don't count the surge really having the start time, where the effect it needs with the numbers and resources, until around June 15th, because that's when you had the forces in place to actually do a surge comprehensively the way that the plan lays out. So that's one piece. The other is, when you say I want the troops out of there now, I want them out, or by the end of the year I want them all out, it's impossible to get the troops out for years. You can get a number of them out, but you can't get out the trainers, the Overwatch forces that provide security, and it's going to take a good year just to redeploy. It's a massive undertaking.
So, Lawrence, if you were faced with that and the political realities here on the ground, what would you recommend? How would we go forward? We're in the fight. We're not getting out. What do we do?
Well, I think you can withdraw in a responsible way in 10 to 12 months if that's the decision that you make. I would also say that General Petraeus tried to make the best case for a situation that's not nearly as good as he said. For example, the number of overall casual civilian deaths in Iraq in August was 2,309. That was up from July. The one figure he left out, which is very important to the American people, American deaths this year are higher than in any other year, and this summer was the bloodiest summer for American troops going all the way back to 2003. My feeling is, unless you start getting out soon, your Army is going to fall apart. The Army's having a very difficult time recruiting the qualified people that they need. Last year, they had to give waivers to close to 1,000 people with felony convictions.
So, General, the backside of this, I guess, is that everything is being bet on this politically. If the Democrats manage to sweep into the White House and control of the Senate and control of the House, which some think they might be able to if this does not go well, as a military person, doesn't General Petraeus have to still be saying there is a clock on this, and the clock on this is the next election?
Well, he's getting tremendous pressure on getting results before the political clock. There's no doubt about it. The Washington clock, prevails. There's no doubt about it. See, this strategy is in place now, which I believe is working, though very slowly, gradually. You can't measure it for effect, really, until this next March report. It's been too early this September, this report. And so that's a good time to really kind of take a comprehensive look at it. I'm for getting troops out, and don't get me wrong, but in a responsible way that was just stated. But I still believe for another 5 years there's going to be some type of American troops there because of the importance of the region, because of oil, because of Iran, and just because of that's how long counterinsurgencies take, about 10 years. Regardless of how we screwed it up front.
Lawrence, I know you'd have more to say about that, but I also know we're out of time.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here, General Grange, as well. Okay, the plans of General